Hey there, welcome in. My name is Ryan. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 7 games that have chess-like strategy. Now, there are 2 main things we're looking for that make a game chess-like. The first one is pure strategy. There cannot be a bunch of randomness in these games. There can't be dice rolls or card flips that determine the outcome. We're looking for pure strategy games. The second thing we're looking for is something called perfect information or perfect knowledge, meaning you can't have a hidden hand of cards or something that you can whip out and surprise your opponent with in these games. Like, you need to be able to know what your opponent has, your opponent knows what you have, what you're able to do in your turn is perfectly known, and you're just trying to make the best decision you can based on that information. And with that being said, we're ready to jump into our first game, and it happens to be my favorite game on the list, and that is Santorini. Santorini is an amazing game where you simply have 2 workers on a little grid, and you're moving around on your turn. You can move, and you can build a tower. All you're trying to do is move, build a tower, eventually try to stand on a tower, maybe build another tower. Work your way up by building towers on top of each other until you stand on a 3rd level. The premise seems simple, but here's the thing. Your opponent's trying to do the same thing, and you don't own your towers. Anyone can jump on anyone's tower at any time, so you're trying to kind of outsmart them, get up to a 3rd level by maybe walling them off or getting them stuck in a corner somehow, trying to basically outmaneuver their workers and get to that 3rd level first. But what makes the game so incredibly good is it comes with 30 special power cards. And these give you crazy powers, like maybe you can move twice and then build, or you can build, then move, then build again. Now, you might be thinking that makes it less chess-like, but actually you assign these powers before the round starts, so everyone can look at what the other people have. You can see your opponent has that power. They can see you have your power, so it becomes a matchup of your 2 crazy powers, both of you still trying to get to a 3rd level first, but you're also trying to keep your opponent from being able to use their ability in a way to win the game, while you're trying to kind of leverage your ability to win. Up next is the game of photosynthesis. Now, this one is a super unique game on the list because it looks beautiful. It screams basically the opposite of like pure strategy game, but actually there's no randomness. It's a really unique puzzle where the sun will be moving around the board and giving light to your trees. Depending on how tall your tree is, that's how many points you have to spend to upgrade into more trees, but also the height of the trees cast shadows onto other people's trees that block them from the sun. So it's a really unique back and forth, especially if you play it a 2-player, where you're trying to build your trees up and get to the point where you know by maybe this season the sun's coming from this angle, you can block their tree this way. You're trying to think through what moves can they make on their turn to possibly basically get leverage on me. So if you do like pure strategy games and you're just up for one that looks really good, this might be a great game for you. Up next is another game that actually took me a while to realize it was a pure strategy game, and that is Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small. This is a slimmed down version of a pretty complicated game called Agricola, but in this version, all you're trying to really do is get some resources, get some cool buildings that give you some specials, also get some animals that you can put in the pens. At the end of the game, you're trying to have the most animals combined with some other ways to score victory points. But if you really get into it, you realize it's just a pure strategy game. You can see what your opponent can do. They can see what you can do. You're just trying to gather resources and basically make the most efficient actions you can on your turn. There's a lot of strategy that comes from, do I take the sheep now? There's a lot there. But if I wait another turn, I can hold even more sheep so I don't have to throw any away. But if I wait one more turn, they might take all the sheep. Now, you can play where random buildings are set out at the beginning of the game, but it is still a pure strategy game. It's just that there's a randomized setup. Before the game starts, the buildings are laid out so you can see where they are. It's perfect knowledge, still perfect information, but it does have a variable setup if you want to play with those extra buildings. Up next here, we have the game of Onitama. And of all the games on the list, this one is the biggest, just direct imitation of chess. You and your opponent set up your pieces on a simple little 5x5 grid with the basic goal of you have 1 tall piece and 4 short pieces. And all you have to do is either get your tall piece to the opposite side of the board in the center, or with one of your pieces, capture their tall piece. But what makes it interesting is there's no preset movement for these pieces. What you have is you have little cards with movements. Like you might have a movement that's called the tiger, and the tiger can jump forward 2 spaces or move back. Well, on your turn, you could spend the tiger and move any one of your 5 pieces forward 2 spaces. Every turn you're going to have a couple cards to choose from, but whichever card you choose, you then have to pass to your opponent. And on their turn, they can pick between some cards, and they're basically going to get to use your card as well if you want to. So you kind of have some cards that are clearly better than the other, but they make their way around the table. As you play the game, there's this kind of flow where you're like, okay, I really like the dragon card. I could really use that dragon card. Do I hold on to it? But as long as you hold on to just one card, you're forced to play whatever card you have because you only have 2 cards to choose from. So sometimes you kind of want some variety, so you go ahead and play a card and give your opponent that power. But it ends up, once you kind of know it, it feels a lot like chess, because on some of your turns, you can see the cards. And there's games of it, like it took me a few games to get into it, but after a while you have these moments where you're playing it and you go, oh, okay, got it. So I have to have this person move to that square. If I use this card right here, they're going to give me this card. I can do this on my next turn. They can't block me with the cards that they have. Again, perfect information. You can see the cards they have. So you're basically trying to figure out the whole puzzle of how things are going to flow around. Again, end up the game with either capturing their main piece or get your main piece to the other side of the board in the center. Up next here is the game of Hive. Now, Hive is a really interesting pure strategy game where the basic goal is surround the opponent's queen. Pretty simple stuff, right? Well, every time you put a piece on the board, it's a different bug. You can play spiders or ants or grasshoppers, and they all have their own movement pattern. But once you place your queen bee out there, well, now you can start commanding the other bugs on the board. So the grasshopper, for example, can jump as far as it wants to in a straight line. The ant can move as far as it wants to around the outside of it. You can place your bugs out there in whatever order you want to. You can also have asymmetric boards because you could choose to start moving your pieces around sooner, whereas your opponent could keep putting pieces on the board for more turns. So they could have 7 pieces out there. You could have 5 you could start moving around. So on your turn, you're free to place another piece or you're free to make a move. Again, it's a very open-ended kind of pure strategy game. Now, the last 2 games on the list are actually not 100% pure strategy. They do have a little element of randomness. I still want to put them on the list though because they have a lot of that chess-like strategy that still really evoke that kind of feeling, even though, again, keep in mind they do have small elements of randomness. The first one of those 2 games is Small World. Now, Small World is a super interesting game where you're trying to control a map, and what you're going to have is a species and a power. Now, those 2 things are combined randomly before the game starts. You're going to pick out a species and a power. You're going to get so many tokens depending on the power strength, and you're basically going to try to conquer the board using that species special ability and that power. What's so interesting, the reason it's chess-like, is you can actually look and you can determine the outcome of battles. You can know, okay, with this power and this, I can take over you in this square here because it costs 4 guys. That's going to be cost 2, that costs 2, that costs 3. So I'll be able to attack here. So if I attack here, how will that leave me defended for when you attack me on your turn? Okay, what could you do on your turn? You can just look at their stuff and see, okay, you're going to have a total of 7 total guys that could attack me. Would it be worth it for you to attack me and try to take zones back, or you go to the other side of the map and take those open zones? So it has a lot of this pure perfect counting strategy to it, and really the species you determine, the ones you pick, also some of them that are higher up on the list you have to pay for, and so it's also another kind of strategic counting thing. Okay, is it worth it for me to pay 3 coins to get this better species? Well, I make up those 3 coins in places that I conquer out on the map. Now, the final game on the list is Emotep. Now, like I said, it's not a pure strategy game, and it's also a pick that I think when lots of people who have played Emotep before hear it, they'll think that's a terrible pick. That's not chess-like at all. And I would kind of agree. When you first play it, it does feel pretty light. Just, oh, I'll just put some cubes on boats and sail them to locations. What you're going to do, be putting cubes, basically bricks, onto boats in ancient Egypt, and then you or your opponents can choose to sail the boats to specific locations, like to the pyramids, to the obelisk, to the burial chamber. So this strategy is really interesting. You want to get into certain positions on the boat. You might be able to see the second cube off at the pyramid is going to score 4 points, but the third cube off the pyramid is only going to score 1 point. So you might put your cube in a second position on a boat, but you don't know if your opponent is going to just take the hit and sail that boat for you to the pyramid. They could also sail that boat to the obelisk, to the wrong location. So you and your opponent, especially in a 2-player game, it's very kind of thinky, okay, when do I make kind of the decision of sailing a boat? When do I want to keep placing cubes? When do I need to go to the mines and basically replenish my cubes so I can do more stuff? So very interesting, almost pure strategy game once you get into the turn. Now, I will say the reset between turns does have some randomness to it. You flip out some random boats. You don't know if there's going to be big boats or small boats available for the next round. Also, there are some random cards at the market that are flipped on every turn. It's a low degree of randomness, but can make a difference whether you're the first player the next round or not, depending on what's flipped out. But I find overall that level of randomness is pretty easy to manage because, again, you set it up before each round starts, and then you start playing out the round with whatever setup. Everyone can see everything out there once the round is set up. Alright, if you like the game of chess, hopefully this video has given you a few new board games that you can try out. And again, keep in mind the first 5 games on the list are more pure strategy games, 100% pure strategy games, while the last 2 do have some randomness, but like I said, it kind of fires the same cylinders in the brain as the game of chess. Let me know what your favorite pure strategy games are in the comments down below, and of course, if you want to hit that subscribe button, you'll see a lot more videos just like this one. See ya.